Hey everybody, and thanks for joining me on another episode of Straight Jacket White Rabbit. My name's Adam, and as usual, I'll be your host. Imagine for me, if you would, a lone island off the coast, crashing waves, patrolled by law. Nobody's allowed to go near it. Ran by a mad Nazi scientist. Sounds like the start of some kind of weird freaking horror or mystery novel, doesn't it? This is the origin stories of Plum Island. Plum Island is a research and biodefense facility, according to the U.S. government. The research they conducted there was so dangerous that it couldn't be on the mainland because they were fearful of the things they had in this facility getting out into the general population. If that wasn't bad enough, it was headed up by a smuggled-in Nazi named Erich Traub. Erich Traub was a biological weapons specialist for the Nazis who was smuggled through Russia to the United States to head up our research facility at Plum Island. He was given free range and a very large budget to come up with some of the most horrific diseases and viral outbreaks that the human mind could come up with. Now, a lot of people very upset about the whole Erich Traub thing. I don't personally believe that any of the Nazis should have gotten away with what they got away with, whether they were scientists or not. But America did bring the scientists over here, so there's nothing we can do about it now. Now, you guys, Plum Island is riddled. I mean, completely riddled with accidents and mishaps and mystery, and a lot of people believe murder. We're going to start off with one of the most, I guess, obvious things. They did a lot of tick research on Plum Island, you guys, and right off the coast, down the coastline from Plum Island, is a place called Lyme, Connecticut, the birthplace of Lyme disease, which a lot of people believe came from, you got it, Plum Island. They did experiments with ticks infecting people with these diseases, and in noted paperwork admitted to doing some of these tests outside. Well, here's a question for you, genius. If you put a bunch of ticks outside on an island that is frequented by many migrant birds, is there a chance some of those ticks are going to get off your island? Yeah, there is. Now, Lyme disease is a crippling disease that hurts tons of people in our country, you guys. I'm not sure if any of you actually know what Lyme disease is, but if you don't, look it up. It's a terrible disease. It's basically the equivalent of, like, you throw some sand in your bloodstream, and wherever that sand would land, it's just completely decimates it. You know, if it lands in your kidneys are messed up. If it lands in your brain gets messed up. It's a very serious disease, guys. And a lot of people blame Erich Traub, the Nazi, and his research at Plum Island for the creation of Lyme disease. Now, according to the U.S. government, Lyme disease is not created at Plum Island, nor were they responsible for it being used at Plum Island. And they definitely said it was not used as a biological weapon. However, documents from our own government list Lyme disease as a biological weapon. Also, if you look at the unclassified documents from Plum Island, you can find that, guess what? One of the main things they were researching at Plum Island was Lyme disease. Was it made there? I find it funny it wasn't anywhere else on the globe before Plum Island and Lyme, Connecticut. But like I said, this place was plagued with conspiracies and all kinds of just accidents and oddities that showed up around this place, you guys. We're going to move ahead a little bit. This place had numerous lab leaks, you guys. They were busted trying to seal a lab door that had a faulty seal with duct tape. Duct tape. I don't know when the last time y'all used duct tape for anything was, but it doesn't stop viruses. Duct tape is handy for a lot of stuff. You can be a MacGyver mofo with some duct tape. Duct tape is not meant to stop bacteria, viruses, any of that stuff. So what good did duct taping around this broken seal on a door in a biological weapons facility? And they can say it's not a weapons facility, but it's I don't care what you call it, biological research facility. They deal with weaponized biological weapons. I'm sorry, that's just what I can't even call it anything else. It'd just be a straight outright lie if I did. Here's the other thing. They dispute this. They say, no, Plum Island was strictly to deal with diseases that affect animals, not diseases that infect humans. Well, here's another lie they told you. Comes out when people started digging into Plum Island, they found out that all of the employees of Plum Island, every single one, even the ferry drivers who ferried employees to Plum Island, had to sign an agreement, whereas they were not allowed to go anywhere within any reasonably close distance to animals. They were not allowed to go to zoos. They were not supposed to go near pet stores, or even if they had a pet, they weren't supposed to have one. They weren't supposed to go near animals at all. Well, why? If humans weren't something that can contract these diseases and spread them, why worry about where your employees are going? Because it turns out, from the mouth of the people who run this organization, they flat out admitted on an interview with Jesse Ventura that yes, these diseases, for lack of a better term, that they work on or create can and do often infect their employees. But they're supposedly not infected to the point where it harms them. They're just kind of a middle stage incubator, if you will, until this disease can get to another animal that it can infect and harm. I don't believe this. I believe that they're working on not just like agricultural and biological warfare weapons to deal with animals and all this other stuff. I believe that they are strictly responsible for a number of other heinous acts. Let's look at the mysterious case of the Montauk Monster, you guys. For those of you who don't know, the Montauk Monster was a creature that was roughly 2.5 to 3 feet tall, seemed to have almost a beak type into its face, sharp teeth, no fur, real short, stumpy, thick, very muscular tail, claws, and a few other odd features on this creature. Now, when this, coming from someone who was alive when this happened and old enough to have processed it, when this happened, you guys, all manner of people were coming out saying, what is this? What could this possibly have been? And I heard everything from some kind of new species of, what was it, otter or something that had been mutated somehow, to now they're saying it was a raccoon that was shaved and or had a disease that made it hairless. And they said that this thing floated through the ocean while some of its fur was being lost and picked out, and all these other little anomalies happen that kind of make it look the way it looked. And they're trying so hard nowadays to explain this, because for months after this thing showed up on the beach, you guys, not a scientist, not a doctor had a reasonable clue what this creature was. They all looked at the photos. They all said, I have no idea what that could be. But yeah, now all of a sudden it's a shaved raccoon or a bald raccoon or some nonsense. I believe that about as much as I believe that the Statue of Liberty was really moving on the set of Ghostbusters. Okay, Ghostbusters 2. Sorry about that, guys. Now, weird enough, yes, there was also a few other animals that looked odd and nobody could identify that have washed up on these shores right off the coast of Plum Island. But here's a weird one. I believe it was in 2010 this happened. You can check and see if I'm right. There was a white male in the dead of winter wearing only board shorts who was found deceased off the coast of Plum Island. People drown. People fall off boats. People die. It happens. Here's where it gets weird. This white man, about 6 feet something tall, had enormously elongated fingers, guys, according to the police report. It took, I think it was like close to 2 years. It was like a year and 8 months or something to that degree for the police to give a more accurate description of what really long fingers meant. These things were almost double the size of a normal human finger on the same sized hand. This is according to an official coroner's report. Double the length of a human finger, okay? Length of my finger. No, double it. That means my finger would be to here. That's ridiculously weird, right? But I'll give you one better. Maybe it was just someone who had a birth defect. Somebody who had a mutation in their cells. Some random chance that they happened to be found or they perished near Plum Island. Wrong. Because it gets even weirder than that. This man had holes drilled in his cranium, just like during some of the brain experiments that we do in laboratories, where, they saw off the top of your head and then they drill down to put on the little electrode helmet thing. They also do this to people who they don't saw off the top of your head so your brain's visible. They can also do it through that, but they drill it into your skull, you guys. There's a lot of weird things going on with this. What kind of person was this? Why did he have such creepy, elongated fingers? What the heck was with the drill marks in his skull? Unless that area is known for some kind of weird serial killer, he's got a thing for long-fingered victims, and he's drilling holes in their head. I'm thinking somebody got experimented on. Was this man possibly a creation at Plum Island? Maybe he was born, raised, and bred there. Was it just some human who was being experimented on against his will? Let's be honest, guys, with our government. Anybody else remember things like the Philadelphia experiment or numerous other times that our government has experimented on its own people? This could have been some poor U.S. citizen who is just abducted and experimented on. And it gets strange even from there, believe it or not. Even with all of what I keep telling you, it gets even stranger. Because the police, I can't even say they investigated this as a crime, you guys. Not realistically. The police department, the local police department who this was reported to and went through, have never officially closed the case because murder has no statute, and they believe that it was some kind of a homicide, or at least a possible homicide. So they've never closed the investigation, but they also never really investigated it. As far as I'm aware, and if I'm wrong, please, if you know anything correct that I don't know, you feel free to correct me in the comments. But as far as I know, there was zero investigation into any of the Plum Island laboratories. There was zero investigation into any of the Plum Island staff about this body that was found literally right off their shores. Or on their shores, I think it was actually. But I mean, how do you not conduct an investigation with the people there? I don't care if it's a government sanctioned place or not. There's a dead body with holes drilled in its head and double length fingers. That's a little odd. Not to mention, this man was wearing freaking board shorts in the middle of December. I believe it was December. It was in the middle of winter. But he was wearing freaking board shorts, okay? Nobody was out swimming at this time, which to me says this guy was either indoors somewhere warm and he escaped, or he's been missing for a while and he was abducted wearing these clothes and then was just found. Whether he escaped and drowned in the water or whatever, I don't know. But it gives credence to the thought that this man might have been held against his will. Because, I mean, the clothing doesn't match what he should have had on for that time of year. They got nothing when they tried fingerprints and DNA and all this other stuff from this John Doe. And there just seems to be a lot more questions about this murder, or I don't even know if they classify it technically as a murder right now, guys. I know they haven't closed the case officially because, there is a victim and he did die, but it's just an odd story. You guys ever want to dig into Plum Island more? Feel free. But we're going to move on a little bit because Plum Island is no more, according to mainstream news and our government. They've apparently shut down the old laboratory. Yes, you're hearing me right. They shut it down. And instead, they now built the National Bio and Agro Defense Facility, which is another nice way of saying the exact same thing Plum Island was. Okay. The National Bio and Agro Defense Facility that they built to replace Plum Island, you guys, is smack in the middle of our freaking cattle country. It's in the middle of the heartland of America where we produce food for our country. A lot of food. Both cattle and crops. Now, why do I have such a big deal with this? Because I think this is part of a plan that's been a long time coming, you guys. Why on earth would you move this research center to the middle of the country where there are tornadoes and all other kinds of things that go on in Kansas, guys? You're going to move this facility there, right next to the head of our freaking cattle industry, right next to tons of our crops and farming industries. It doesn't make any sense unless you look at the founder of Plum Island. Everybody who looks into Eric Traub knows one thing. Eric Traub's notorious field of study was hoof and mouth disease, guys. For those of you who don't know, this is the same disease that entirely decimated the UK's beef industry, because when this happens, you have to destroy pretty much any head of cattle within miles, because chances are they could be or are already infected. It's a horrible disease. It makes the meat completely inedible to us. There are tons of bodies and land that have to be burned to pasteurize it and cleanse it of this. I find it really weird that Eric Traub's study and his main focus of study was things like hoof and mouth disease and how to infect crops. And we're now moving his dream, his project, his home base. I mean, I know he's not alive anymore, but let's be honest, he founded it, it's his. And they're moving this to Kansas, in the middle of where our food supplies are. I think this is about the dumbest move in American history, you guys. There's not even been any real research done as to whether or not this place can stand the tornadoes that come through that area of Kansas. There are some rather large tornadoes that go right by this is right by the university where they built this new facility, guys. Right on or right off the campus of Kansas State University. This facility is big, but it's not very well protected from what we can see on the outside. I mean, God knows what they have on the inside and underground, granted. But from the pictures I've seen and the tour photos I've seen outside of the buildings and stuff, it does not look like a super sound structural, body. It's a big, very large complex, two and one small building, so like three buildings or two large buildings that are connected in the middle, one or the other. I can't exactly remember off the top of my head right now. But they're like 70% windows. That doesn't make me feel safe right off the bat in a place that has heavy tornado activity. Now, those of you who don't know, during a tornado, there is a very large suction force that is applied to things within the funnel. Who's testing these seals to say that they can withstand tornadoes of an F2, F3, F4, F5, God forbid? I don't believe it. I believe that this was moved to the middle of our country, and I believe that we are going to be experiencing some kind of a major setback. Be it hoof and mouth that gets out or something worse. We've already seen what labs can do, you guys. We wore masks for how long? Or were forced to wear masks for how long? Because of the COVID strain that got out that everybody said couldn't have possibly come from the lab in China that was studying COVID viruses. No, it had to come from the wet market down the street. Until now, when they're admitting that, it probably 99% came from that lab that we helped fund in China. They're trying to knock our numbers down, guys. I'm telling you, man, the world is getting desperate. The elite are getting desperate. They're trying to control our numbers. And all these little ways are ways they pick off the population. Wars, famine, disease. These are all little ways that they keep that population from getting too much higher. If you look at the global birth stats of our planet right now, we're in trouble, you guys. Our birth rates are on the decline almost everywhere. Are they doing it on purpose? I believe so. To what end? Is it control? Is it just that's the maximum they believe the population should be at, and so they set a number and they're going to try to achieve it? I don't know. But I do know this. I do not believe for 1 minute that it's some kind of coincidence that we seem to have periods on this planet where vast amounts of people drop dead. Either there's a war, and then there's civil unrest and all these other murders, and then there's an outbreak, and people say, well, this is just the world correcting itself. The world doesn't make humans fight wars and kill hundreds of thousands of people. Okay, there's a lot of death that is designed by governments around the world and implemented by governments around the world that doesn't need to be. The question you need to ask yourself is, why are they implementing plans that are costing so many human lives? Why would they move a bioresearch facility with deadly contaminants inside of it to the middle of our country. I mean, God forbid. We've already been attacked by terrorists in this country before. We know they can get in our country. Why even take the chance at putting this building where you put it? Why not put it on another island? Better yet, put it somewhere really far away. Plum Island wasn't that far off our coast. I would have preferred that thing to be another 20 miles off our coast further than it was. And every country has these kind of departments, you guys. It's not just us that has them, so I'm not trying to say that. What I'm trying to say about it is I believe ours has a lot more negative intent than the public is led to believe. I do not believe all of their research and all of their projects are on the up and up. There's too many unknowns here, guys. What caused these freak animals to wash up in Montauk? What caused the death of the human body with the elongated fingers and the holes drilled in his head? And keep in mind, they were drilled. They weren't just 3 holes in his head. It wasn't like he bashed in with a rock, okay? They were drill holes in this dead man's head. Why was he wearing board shorts in the middle of winter? He wasn't super decayed. He hadn't been floating in the ocean forever, you guys. This was a fairly fresh body they found. What killed him? Who killed him? You know, you guys, I ask a lot of questions about government, and I say this all the time, that I don't trust and I don't like government, and that's true. But it is a necessary evil to certain degrees. What I don't believe in is having a government that is supposed to represent and be for the people turn around and tell the people, well, we can't tell you these things, but we're going to make you safer. Oh, I can't share this, but you're going to be protected. I'd rather be in danger than be in the dark as far as knowledge goes of what's going on with biological weapons and other things in my country. I don't need you to make me safe. I need you to make me convinced that you aren't the bad guy. Because in our country, the government's gotten so big, you guys, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, and vice versa. So in the meantime, keep an eye on Kansas. Who knows? It could be the start of another outbreak. I'll catch you next time on Straight Jacket White Rabbit.